we got a lot of show today. We got
Yes.
a big show today. We got Vince Redmond coming up in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about summer schedules.
Which
because
are stressful.
in some way or another, I think everybody I know has had some form of a meltdown about the summer schedule in some way. And it's lots of different things for different people, but there's something to get upset. It's change.
It's change, and change is hard. And change is hard for kids on the spectrum.
And don't you think
it's
it's harder in our community, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but don't you think it's harder when everybody else is celebrating the change and you don't feel like celebrating the change, and it just makes you like go,
Yeah, because it means that I have to schedule Wyatt for the summer to make sure he's busy.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't do Idle Hands or the Devil's Workshop.
Yes.
And he doesn't do well without schedule. Whereas some parents can let their kids just be, you know, their 15-year-old kids just go do their thing.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly have felt in the last 2 weeks, we've had more phone calls, I've had more emails, more people messaging me going, you know, and I'm stressed, and I feel the stress from all of them. And then, you know, and you and I have encountered this, that at one point, you know, you said, and I was like, no, I'm thrilled that it's summer.
Yeah, you're thrilled it's summer.
And I realized that I've crossed over into that place where I'm part of the problem now, because I'm like, but it's summer and it's so happy and whatever, and people want to have me killed. And I don't blame them. So
I wish I felt that way.
Vince is, well, and I want you to feel that way. I want everybody to feel that way. So Vince is going to try to help us sort through it. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And then we have Kurt Maneke, and I didn't bring the book in.
Okay.
We'll have to get that before. But he wrote the book Smile and Succeed he wrote this for neurotypical teens as a manual for, look, these are the old school things you got to do, like shake hands, make eye contact,
a lot of social
smile.
skills.
And he lines it all out in really simple language with cartoons about what's important. And he was on the show a couple of months to talk about it. But he wrote this for neurotypical kids, but it's the book that Temple Grandin got a hold of and said, every single one of our kids on the autism spectrum who's a teenager should get this book. So Kurt went back and he wrote the parent companion manual, so that when you give the kid their book to them as a gift, then you've got the manual to follow along and do the lessons with them. So I think that's great, and we're going to talk about that. That's later on today. But first, we got a bunch of in the news. You want to dive in?
Sure. Paramount has acquired the movie rights to Steve Silberman's science book, Neurotypes. And they've set it up with Lorne Michaels, which is Saturday Night Live producer, which is an interesting choice.
It is a very interesting
I
choice.
found the fact that they're making this into a movie an interesting choice. I think I don't quite see how it's going to play out, but I guess it's a whole historical thing.
I think it'll be really interesting, and I can envision that it's going to be a cast with some pretty big names, because it will. I would think in order to do it, they would have to have a bunch of people doing little vignettes about things that happen with autism over the years.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see who plays Canner. It'll be interesting to see who plays Asperger.
Right.
And it will be interesting to see. I mean, this was a pretty controversial book. And it got a lot of press two summers ago.
Yes, it did.
And there was a lot of discussion about it, because Steve Silberman puts forth the idea that the amount of autism is not rising. These people have always been here with these genes. It's just that we weren't diagnosing it. And it's sort of the history of where Asperger's was and where autism was all these years ago. So it's more awareness. I'll be interested to see. Very interesting choice to have Lorne Michaels and his company, which is Broadway Video Production Company, working on this. It'll be interesting.
Right. I agree.
I can envision a lot of Saturday Night Live people in this movie. If that's the case,
Yes.
could be
Could
fascinating.
Could be.
Okay, so, and also looking at Netflix, last week we covered the fact that there was a TV show coming that has a doctor that's on the autism spectrum. This week we're hearing from Netflix that they've got a new show coming out featuring a teenager who is on the autism spectrum, and the title of it, Atypical.
Right.
You were mentioning during the break that that's the title of a book that a friend
of ours, Jesse Saperstein, who we've had on the show, wrote a book called Atypical about his life with autism.
And he's on the autism,
Yes, he is. So, but this is Netflix, and so it seems like there's just a lot of autism in the media.
Plethora.
And this is a coming of age story in a new direction. And it talks about his point of view, and it's a comedy really, because there's a lot of comic. elements in it.
But what's very interesting is that the main character, the point of view, comes from the teenager who's on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
I will be interested to see how they deal with this. The 18-year-old who is playing Sam, the main character, is not on the spectrum, but he's going to be portraying him. August 11th. It'll be available on Netflix, and I'll be very interested to see it and see whether it's something appropriate for my teenager to watch.
And he plays a high school senior, and it deals with things like dating and social relationships and all kinds of things.
But from the point of view of somebody who's on the spectrum, which I can imagine that there is fodder for comedy there, because a lot of the things that happen socially that are normal are ridiculous.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll be interested to take a look at that. Okay, new study about this one. I file under the duh heard round the world.
Right.
New study about eye contact that says that it's not just that people with autism don't like making eye contact, it's uncomfortable to the point of being painful to them. Duh.
They said it feels like burning.
Did we not know that?
I think we knew that it was uncomfortable, but I don't think this is a research study that really goes into exactly why that is.
And how in the brain and what the reaction is and so on and so forth. But I and I always appreciate research, and we all learn from it, and it stacks up and we go, oh, there's preponderance of evidence that shows that whatever. It's just that for those of us who have kids on the spectrum, I mean, that was the thing that I wanted to know when Jem was 3 is why doesn't he want to make eye contact? And it wasn't just that he didn't want to, that he physically couldn't.
Right.
And that it was, I could, the only evidence that I had before he lost language that something was going on was I breastfed him. And he, they tell you to sit with your baby and get them to latch on and make eye contact. Well, he wasn't breastfeeding, and we couldn't figure out why. Well, when I would make eye contact with him, he couldn't breastfeed and make eye contact at the same time. He made beautiful eye contact, and we would make eye contact every other time, but he couldn't breastfeed and make eye contact. And I said, it's too much for him. I could tell that it was too much. That it was like eye contact was so powerful. And I've talked to so many adults who are on the autism spectrum and said, what's the deal with the eye contact? And they said, it's personal. It's private. It's like being undressed in public, that it can feel like you're being burned. Have you ever, there are times where I've felt you make eye contact with somebody and it's like, it's a thing, right?
You feel like you have to look away.
Right, because it's intense. I can say this, that the first time I ever felt that was with Bono.
Really?
Bono made eye contact with me, and I was like...
And where was this? This is an interesting story.
I got to meet Bono when I was very young. I have a glove signed by him. That's a whole other.
Wow.
That's a whole other story. But the first time I felt that was with Bono, and I was like, whoa. And I know people
because it was so intense for you to make eye contact with Bono.
Oh, he's a pretty intense guy.
Yeah.
And I know other people that have said, oh yeah, no, they had that reaction with him.
Really?
He's pretty intense.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably like that when you meet. The reason why he's so famous is his personality.
Right.
It's not just contained. It goes, there are people who are intense.
Yeah.
And then, when I was a little bit older, I've had that reaction with other people, but you learn to sort of mitigate it.
Right.
But I was probably 18 when I met Bono, and I was like, what was that?
Okay.
It was like being hit by a truck. But, the man has sold a lot of records. Anyway, we're out of time. But check this out. It's the study about eye contact. I don't even know. It's the University, Massachusetts General Hospital. And
it was published in Scientific Reports.
There you go. So check that out. But I want to have just a second here to talk about this story, because this story was in the New York Times and it really got me excited.
Right. For children, it's the headline is "For Children with Autism, No More Being Hushed."
Right, which I thought was a little bit misleading once you get into the article, but it's about Dorothy Siegel, who is a 70-year-old special education advocate who has been on the ground in New York City saying, get rid of the one-on-one aids. Now, you hear that and you go, what? Why are you but it's not that she wants to get rid of the help and support. What she's saying is that these people aren't trained to actually help these kids, that a lot of times what they're doing, and we've all experienced this, that there's a person next to your kid going, look at the teacher.
Right.
Which is not all that effective.
No.
Let's be honest. If they're not trained well, aides aren't going to do well. And her supposition is that person takes a whole salary. If we get rid of that person and put a trained, certified, capable teacher who understands behavior, how much have we been singing this song here on that show? In that, so now we got 2 teachers, we lower the class level, we've got 2 teachers who know how to educate less kids to deal with. Can we get that kid more involved in the environment? And the answer was yes.
And it's a program called ASD Nest, and it's now in 39 elementary, middle, and high schools in New York City.
And I am so looking forward to reaching out to Ms. Siegel to see if we can get her on the show, because I think this is right on the money.
And her inspiration was Temple Grandin's Thinking in Pictures.
Thank you very much. So definitely something to look at. Article in the New York Times, but we're going to see if we can get Ms. Siegel on the show in the coming weeks for our Autism in the Classroom, because that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so we got to hurry and get to a commercial so we can get back with Vince Redmond, licensed marriage and family therapist, and he's going to be talking with us about the dreaded summer schedule. Stick with us.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, I introduced you to step 5 of the 10 steps to empowerment, shore up spiritually. Let's talk more about finding ways to do that, how to find out what lifts your spirit, feeds your soul, and make it a practice. That practice is different things for different people. It could be the practice of meditation, of prayer, of community worship, or serving others. But it's the practice that will give you hope and faith and strength for the journey ahead, for the marathon journey of raising a child with autism. I get inspired every day by the families of children with autism that I come into contact with, like the parents of the nonverbal child who have not given up hope that that child will speak one day, or the grandparents who should be enjoying their retirement but instead are joyfully raising their adult grandchild with autism, or the mother who is fighting for services for her daughter while her Marine husband is fighting a battle to keep our country safe. They all inspire me. My grandmother, Diddy, who is an angel who still guides me every day, had this quote inscribed in her Bible. I sought my soul, but my soul I could not see. I sought my God, but my God eluded me. I sought my brother, and I found all 3. I think I'm finally starting to grasp the meaning of that. So feed your soul, lift your spirit, and until next time, keep the faith.
We're back with, as we promised, Vince Redmond, who is going to help us work through the maze of summer scheduling and the stress it causes. Hi, Vince. How are you?
Hi. Good. How's everyone?
There
Good.
you are. I just want to say, because Vince is so particularly fabulous, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't seen him before, that Vince began his career as a therapist, working in the field with kiddos that were on the autism spectrum, and he did that for multiple decades and is now a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping all of us to understand all the feelings and the challenges that go along with. He's uniquely qualified to be able to do that because having been on the other side of the equation. So Vince, we welcome you back, and we apologize to you because it's been several months since we've had you on the show, and that's all our fault and none of yours. But we've missed you.
I did give one up for you.
You did.
I'll give that one to Corey.
That you did when we had Corey Feldman on.
Right.
We were going to have Vince on, and Vince said, I think I have a feeling, because Vince sees things that we don't.
Right.
And Vince wrote to me and he said, I have a feeling you have other things to do that morning. Can you imagine looking back if we had still tried to do the full LTA?
No.
Vince, you may have saved us all from sanity. Insanity. But anyway, we don't want to take any more of your time talking about that. You're just a great guy and always willing to take one for the team. So talk to us about summer, because everybody has been stressed, and it's from lots of different things, whether their schedule got changed, whether they got therapists coming or going, whether it's figuring out what their child is doing when they're not in therapy. It's for some reason this time it has felt worse for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of multiple things. I mean, the first thing is summer, and we know that change, is just a natural progression when it comes into summer. And anytime there's change, just us as human beings, anyone gets nervous, they get anxious with change. Even though it could be positive change, we still just have this innate ability to get anxious about change. Then when we add change that involves things that we have no control over, loss of therapist, maybe a switch of an office, maybe there's some problems with funding sources, what have you, then that becomes even more anxiety producing because it's out of our control. And I know a lot of families, we're already anxious enough. There's already a lot of unpredictability in their lives. And when these types of changes come up, it just adds to it. So what we really propose is, working together, communicating, really being open with each other, the provider to family and family to provider on, what are their anxieties, what are their fears, what are their concerns, what are their frustrations, so that everyone understands what's under control either through the family or control through the vendor, on what we can do to make that change, a little more palatable for everyone.
What about our kids? How can we make the change more palatable for them? They get out of school, and depending, of course, on the individual situation, some of them might be in summer school, extended school year. Some of them might be going to camps. Then they also have therapy. How can we set them up if they're particularly anxious about change?
And you kind of hit on it a little bit. It's establish a routine for them, right? It's a new routine, but you do want to establish a routine, either if it is going to camp 3, 4, 5 days a week, is it summer school where they're going to school from 9 to 12. Try to establish some type of scheduled routine for them. I know depending on level of comfort, anxiety, and functionality of the child, you can have schedules. Either it be a visual schedule, it could be just a regular schedule, it could be something of just a routine schedule that the kids are involved in, where they go to school, they come home, then they have play dates, then they have maybe a little screen time, have snacks, what have you. Or they go to camp, if we need visual schedules. The whole idea, though, is try to establish some type of a routine so that the kids have something to predict. This will lower their anxieties. Our kids have a very difficult time predicting the future. They have a hard time understanding what's going to come next. The more we can make that routine for them, even though it's a different routine than the spring, right, when they're in school, it will establish lower anxiety and probably better results.
And then there's also the vacations, which can cause stress because of travel stress, right?
Mm-hmm. True. And again, depending on the level of child, we want to talk to the child about this ahead of time, right? Again, establish it in the schedule. Talk about it. Let's not wait till the last minute and say, okay, let's start packing. Hey, guess what? We're going to Disney World. That's way too much to process, way too much to understand. And our kids are they need those comforts. They need those, they're creatures of habit, right? They need those routines. So we have to start giving them time to process what's going to change. So if there's a vacation coming, we should start talking about it immediately as summer starts. On, just on July 4th, we're going to go to Disney World, we're going to take a plane, and just continue to talk about it so that when the date arrives, the child's not going to be surprised. They're not going to be scared. They still might be a little anxious, but now it's a little bit more, appropriate, and they'll be able to cope with it a lot better.
My son gets particularly anxious about traveling on planes now. He used to not, but it's something that's come up in the last couple of years. He doesn't like long flights. How could I help with that situation?
Do any of us like long flights?
No, you're right. And do any of us like airports these days?
No.
I'm sitting here thinking, because I do a lot of travel as well. I'm like, I don't like it either. I think the biggest thing that we could do with our kids is finding out where their anxieties are coming from. Is it just that they're bored and this is, they're kind of caught in a capsule and they just have nothing to do? Is it noise? Is there a lot of sensitivity to the loud noises of being in an airport, hearing the planes, those kind of things? And then we can come up with solutions on how to do it. The noise deafening earphones work great for a lot of kids. Making sure that we have I would say a plethora of different things that they could do while they're on the plane, not just one thing. I think a lot of times we get very focused on, just give them the iPad to watch movies. That might last an hour or two, but if you're going by coastal, there's 3 more hours that we need to fill time. So bringing multiple things that they would enjoy, multiple things that would keep them occupied, so that we can continue to change things up so that their interest stays on different tasks and less about being on a plane. I know the best advice I ever got as a parent myself was when I had a very young child, was taking her on a plane. And the advice to me was, go to the 99-cent store, spend $20 and just get 20 or more different little cheap little toys and things that they would be interested in. Put them in a bag, and every hour they could reach in and pick something new. And it worked like a charm, because it was just like this treasure chest of unknown happy gifts, and every time they got something, they played with it, and she was occupied for a good amount of time, and then we built in the music and videos and snacks and that kind of stuff as well. So keeping them occupied is essential.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. I want to talk a little bit about resentment.
Okay.
That I think part of what I've seen and that I've experienced is that summer for most of us is this, idyllic time. We have a perfect memory of a summer, and everybody goes, oh, it's summer, and I'm going to go on this vacation, and I'm going to go to Disneyland. And I can hear the autism mom that goes, oh, that must be nice for you.
Right.
I can't even go to Disneyland, whether it's money because of autism or because I can't get my kid to behave. And we get into this comparison thing of, you don't understand how different my life is from yours.
I think that's so true. And I have to admit feeling resentment sometimes when I look at other families.
And I have in the past, I still sometimes do, about, people who are able to give, the experience of going to 7 camps and paying thousands of dollars for them. And I'm like, oh, well, that must be nice, But I think we all do it to some extent. And I think
the comparison thing.
And I think we do it more as autism parents. And I think for some reason, the summer, with all the changes that come, it tends to really rear its ugly head. So Vince, what do we do for resentment? What's productive?
Take a deep breath. There's our first start, right? Deep breath. I think is part of what you're saying is very natural. We always compare ourselves to other people. I mean, just as humans we do, right? She's better looking, he's taller, he weighs less than I do, whatever it may be. And then us as parents, we do the same thing when we look at our children. We look at our abilities to enjoy the family, and that's what we want to focus on, and that's what you guys want to focus on. Any family that's going on a vacation, it's not about the destination, it's about the memories, the enjoyment, the desires that we're having. And if it's just spending time at a park, or it's spending a weekend at the beach, or it's something that could just we're going to go to a new place in our general vicinities once a week, to maybe a museum, or maybe a different restaurant or a different park or what have you. So that, again, it's looking at the enjoyment, it's focusing on the enjoyment, it's focusing on everybody being able to have a good time, not comparing good time to good time, because when it comes down to it, joy and happiness and enjoyment are all something that you can feel in love and experience with your family, no matter where you go.
So get in the moment is what I'm hearing you say. Think about what you can do versus what you can't do or what somebody else is doing. Focus on what you can do and actually do something, but get in the present.
And something to make you happy, right? And going to Florida is not the only thing that makes you happy. Right?
There have been plenty of times that I look back on a memory and I was fatoutzed at the time, and my pants didn't fit right, or I didn't like the way my hair was or whatever in the moment, and I was crabby. But later on I look back and I go, that was a great time.
Right.
Why can't this be like that? I have a very hard time being in the moment, which is why we do the mindfulness thing on Thursdays. But looking for the joy wherever we can find it is what I'm hearing from you, Vince.
Yeah, and then creating some of it too. Just because we have more constraints because we have treatment and therapies and other things that the kids can do, doesn't mean we can't plan activities. Doesn't mean we can't plan vacations. It's just doing it obviously within our means, but also within what's going to make everyone, where are we going to get the most enjoyment out of it, right? Going on a plane might be actually the worst thing to do because it's going to create a lot of anxiety, fear, and panic. Maybe it's just a car ride. Maybe it is going to the beach more often. There's lots of things that each individual family can do that, if planned out, can be extremely successful.
And what about reaching out to our team and asking for help if there's something like a plane ride that's coming up, and saying to them, what can we do? Because the team can help with that, can't they?
Absolutely. The team wants to help with that. Again, the parents are part of the team, right? Everyone's a team member on the team. So we want the parents and the supervisor to discuss this ahead of time, again, to problem solve, come up with an action plan on what's going to be the best result to decrease any anxieties that the child might have and to decrease the anxieties that the family might have. And to do this ahead of time, I think, is essential, because then we're going to get a lot of advice, be able to plan accordingly, be able to utilize that advice so that when it actually is time, everything can be applied, and hopefully, everything will be successful.
And we've only got a little less than a minute left, Vince, but if you could really quickly address, for people, this is the time of year where the schedule changed for a lot of people getting ABA because the therapist schedules changed. And as you said, some people are having their offices moved and things, and that brings up a lot of anxiety. What can you give for those people to hang on to when that happens?
I think the essential thing, and I know we're working on it on our end as well, is the communication with the families. A lot of times there's things and there's changes that are outside of our control. Either a therapist leaves, they change their availability, they limit where they can work, those types of things. And so it's much more difficult for us to always be able to give what families' requests are, either it be about a certain therapist, certain time frames, and so forth. So we do our very best to adhere to what families are asking for. However, there are a lot of things that also come up in the families' situations that are not under their control. Maybe there's therapies that change, other therapies that change, or summer school that changes. So working together, really staying communicative, I think is essential. I know our offices are working hard to do that, as well as I know a lot of the families are. But as long as we're communicating, being transparent and open with each other, I think that reduces frustrations.
Yeah, and it's not always going to go right, and it's not always going to go smoothly. But I wish if there was one gift that I could give everyone, it would be the front-loaded knowledge that it's all going to be okay in the end. I wish I could go back in time and tell the mom that I was in the first year of therapy, it's all going to be okay. Right. Worry less about every little change. Keep focusing on the big picture. Keep swimming. Don't keep getting upset about all these little things that you feel like you're totally justified being upset about, but in the end don't really add up to a hill of beans. But it's anxiety.
It's true. It's extra anxiety that we're all feeling, that I think it's hurting ourselves more than anything else.
It's hard to know. It's like that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Yeah. But when you're an autism parent, you don't know what the small stuff is.
No, everything seems big.
It all seems big.
Yeah.
It all seems big. And that's where we have that step back. I mean, we have the years of experience where we can look back and see, that it is okay, that things will work out, that, because we lost our favorite therapist doesn't mean that, our child isn't going to continue to progress.
Yeah.
And it's true, because they're living in the here and now. I mean, they're living in, any change could potentially, in their eyes be detrimental. And being able to talk about that, being able to express that, and that's what one thing I would ask the families is to express those concerns, express those fears. I'm afraid that ... So then this way the clinicians and the administrators really understand where everyone's coming from.
Vince, as always, you are a breath of fresh air and help us to get on an even keel. We appreciate you so much. Take just a second here to tell folks what services you provide at CARD and how they can get a hold of you.
They can get a hold of me at any time at my email address, and I don't know if they're going to pop it up there, but it's v.redmond, REDMOND, at centerforautism.com. And we provide, again, counseling services for families. We, just consultations with families. We provide resources for families. Again, discussing with families any concerns that they might have in regards to care and treatment. So really, we're there as a resource and services for all the families throughout the organization.
And Vince is fabulous. If you need him, reach out to him. He's really amazing. We thank you so much.
Vince.
Thank you, ladies.
Have a pleasant beginning of summer, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Okay.
A couple
You
weeks.
too. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Vince. All right, we're going to take a break. We're running a little bit late, and we're going to get Kurt Manicky on the phone so that we can talk on Skype so that we can talk about his new parent guide that goes along with his book, Smile and Succeed for Teens. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm sorry,
That's okay.
You always bring us back, and I don't know why
do I always bring us back?
Well, I try to let you because I have time to do the other.
All right.
But in any case, stepping on her toes. I don't dance well. So Nancy's a much better dancer than I am. In any case, we're really excited because if you watched the show a couple of months ago, we had Kurt Manneke on to talk about Smile and Succeed for Teens, a great book that he had put out. And Kurt is someone who has an extensive career in sales, marketing, and fundraising, and business development. And what he did was take all the good skills that he know that make somebody successful, and he put it together in this book, Smile and Succeed for Teens, to talk about those old world skills, personal, social skills, we call them now, that make you successful. He put together that book for teens, and it was for neurotypical teens. But Temple Grandin found it, Dr. Temple Grandin, and said, this is a great book for
all kids.
All kids, including our kids that are on the autism spectrum. And when Kurt was with us last time, he was promising us that he was going to come out with a companion parent guide to go with the book. So you give the book to your teenager, you've got the companion guide, so that your child is reading things, you get sort of a synopsis of it, and then an exercise to do with them afterwards. It gives all of us the power to be a teacher. So Kurt has now done that. That's what I'm holding in my hands here, this wonderful book. This is the parent's guide, which is great. So Kurt, I've talked so much now, but Kurt, we welcome you back to the show, and congratulations for getting it done.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for having me back.
Yes, and Shannon kind of went over in some ways why you did the parent's guide, but tell us from your perspective why you wrote it.
Well, it was funny because I never even thought about it, and Psych Central did an online review of the book, Smile and Succeed for Teens, and they said, it's a great book, but we can't expect all teens to do everything in the book. They said a parent's guide would be really helpful. So I thought, do I really want to write another book? Because it's a lot of work, as you know. So I was at a Future Horizons conference. They have Temple Grandin speaking, and they sell my books. So I was at the table, and I asked a number of parents. I said, would a parent's guide be helpful? And I had a little mock-up with me, and they all wanted to buy the mock-up. And I said, why would you want a parent's guide? And they said, well, it would make it really easy for us to help our kids without having to dig through the book. You'd have all the questions there ready for us. And after a number of parents said that, I thought, you know what, let me just go ahead and do that. So that was really the reason why. And I think it's helpful for parents to, role play some of the skills, interviewing, mock job interviews, overcoming stress, job skills with their kids. So the first time they try the skills is not in front of a customer. We used to do that when I had a retail store. We do a lot of role playing before the kids got into the real world.
Well, and you just brought up the job interview, and we want to know, tell us about your mock job interview and why you think it's so important.
That's a great question. The mock job interview is really important because if you send any teen or young adult into a job interview and they haven't role played this before, you're really setting them up for failure. So with the mock job interview, and I have it here, I'll look through it. With the mock job interview, you can actually ask them some common questions, such as, tell me about yourself. Or this other one, why do you want to work here? These common interview questions, which sometimes are not that effective at really hiring a good employee, but unfortunately, they're the questions that a lot of people still use today. So if you role play these skills with your son or your daughter and get them comfortable with them, then when they go into the interview, two things will happen. They'll have a little more confidence, they'll feel more comfortable, and they'll do a better job. They'll have a better chance at actually getting hired. They'll know the honest answers to give the interviewer.
Yeah, I just think this is all so smart, Kurt, because
Thank you.
For us, and Nancy and I were talking about this earlier, we had Joanne Lara on the show, who is the head of Autism Works now, and she is working.
Yes, I know who she is. Yes.
Yeah, she's working with adults who are on the autism spectrum to help give them skills. And one of the things that she said on the show recently, and I thought of you, Kurt, was that she said, unfortunately with neurotypical kids, people go up to them when they're little and go, what job do you want to have? What do you want to be when you grow up, honey? And that's what they ask them. But for kids who are different, a lot of times they just say, well, aren't you cute, or aren't you smart, or aren't you whatever, and don't ask them those kinds of questions. So Joanne's having to do this kind of thing with adults, and she says, we got to start much earlier. We got to start when they're 3, but absolutely these teen years, where a lot of us don't know what to do. Our kids are on the spectrum and we don't know where to start, and you've given us the manual.
How can it help those parents of kids with autism?
And that's a great question too. And let me back up just one second. And this is really for teens, tweens, and young adults, so it's very good for any age. I actually took the teaching guide that I had and took 4 months and transferred some of the information to the parents guide. But as far as helping kids with autism, there's a whole section on overcoming stress, which is really important. It gives them some things that they may have thought of. There's a whole section on creating your own job. If, maybe mowing the lawns or helping organize garage sales, there's different things kids can do that they may not have thought of. But most importantly, a parent can role play a lot of these important skills with their son or daughter, just like I did when I had our retail store. You role play, for instance, in the book, a customer walks into your store, what do you do? Or a customer walks into your store, you're already with another customer and you're the only one on the sales floor, what do? You don't ignore that person. You say, hi, how are you? I'll be with you in a minute. Or when somebody walks in your store, it teaches them to smile and say hello and greet that customer and have a warm smile. And that's so critical. I was just in 2 stores Sunday. One just opened up. They totally ignored the customers that were walking in. So you have to create a powerful first impression. And there are a lot of job role-playing skills in this parent's guide to prepare the individual with autism for success, so the employer's happy and the customers are happy.
See, this is one of the many reasons why I love Kurt, because Kurt is an expert in customer service, and I'm all about good customer service. I can't stand bad customer service. And
I'm the same.
Right? And this is the way you speak my language, Kurt.
Tell us about the how to be a mystery shopper worksheet.
That's a really fun exercise. And when I was helping some kids at the local Northville Farmers Market through Living and Learning, it's a great center in Northville for helping kids with job skills. They asked me to come, and I was trying to help the kids with greeting customers that were coming up to the farm market table. And a special education teacher, who's much smarter than I am, said, why don't you just take them around, walk them around, and show them bad examples of people on their cell phones that aren't greeting customers and good examples. So we did that. And the mystery shopper experience is the same thing. They actually learn the skills in Smile and Succeed for Teens, practice them with their parents, but then they can take the mystery shopper sheet, go into a restaurant or a store, maybe with their family or on their own, and notice, did that person smile and say hello as soon as we walked in? How did they engage us? Were they friendly? Were they helpful? There's a number of items in this, and it's kind of a fun exercise, but it really gives the teen or tween or young adult the chance to see good customer service, and then talk with their parents when they come back and discuss ways that the restaurant or service business or any other type of business could have used some of the skills in the book to be better. Did they say please and thank you? Were their electronics off? Did that salesperson make good eye contact with them? And I'm reading some things right from the book. Did they acknowledge new people when they walked in, maybe right at the front of the restaurant, or did they ignore them? So a lot of things that they'll notice will help them see in the real world how these skills are critical. These are the soft skills. They're the number one skill that employers look for when hiring, and that's right. That's according to Harvard University.
And so what's your hope then for how this will help individuals who are on the autism spectrum to get and keep a job?
My hope is that they learn the skills that a lot of neurotypical kids and adults don't have, which are soft skills, and they learn these little skills that maybe people don't think are that important. They're not technical skills, they're just soft skills, they're the social skills, and that employer says, boy, I want to keep this kid around forever, and the customers are happy. And I'll give you a quick story. A friend of mine, he lives in Indiana, and his son read the book, and Rick told me his son is the only employee at the men's clothing store that the owner said to him, you can set your own schedule. You can come back every year because you treat customers exactly how we want them treated. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. If the kids can master some of these skills, they don't have to master all of them. It's just some of them. They will be the best employee. Because I tell you what, I go in a lot of these businesses where kids are working. I don't blame the kids. The store didn't train them, or the business didn't train them. The parents haven't trained them. They just threw them right on the sales floor, or in the grocery store without any training. They're shy. I was at that age. So if you train them, they'll be so much better than a lot of the neurotypical kids that are out there. Because I'll tell you what, as you know, Shannon, you and I do speak the same language. It's really bad out there.
It is bad out there.
It's terrible.
And this is a way that we can give our kids a leg up. I want to tell just a brief story of in the grocery store that is by us since before my son was born. There is a young man who started working there who has Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And clearly our kids and kids with different abilities, I will say this, one of the things that they tend to be, not all kids, but they are rule governed.
Right.
And this young man, I think it was his grandmother who taught him day in and day out the rules of good customer service. So when he was 16 years old, he got a job at our grocery store, and he was rule governed, and that he had to say hello to everybody, mm-hmm. and he was Mr. Polite, and everyone loved coming to the grocery store and interacting with him. And he continued to learn the rules of the store. He's the assistant manager of our store now.
Really?
And it's because he knew these skills, that he is a very treasured employee there, and he is the assistant manager. And I think that these are the skills that are super duper important. And I think that the parents guide, what I love is that the Smile and Succeed for Teens, it's got a lot of drawings in it and cartoons, right, and things that makes it really easy for them to understand. But then you get the parents guide, and as you said, it prevents us from having to read verbatim word for word and then come up with questions, because I don't have the time or energy. Mm-hmm. And I love that I mentioned to you during a break, Kurt, that I gave the book, the first book, to my son, and I said, pick a topic. And he wanted to read about stress. Uh-huh. And then he was reading all of it, and we were having a conversation. And then I went to the parents guide, and it had this wonderful checklist for me to talk about with him about, do you use these techniques? Have you tried them? Are you willing to try them? And we both did it. And it was really fascinating to me, because Jem was saying to me, when we got to one where one of the suggestions you make is you can use humor to help with stress. And my son started to laugh, and he said, well, Mom, you definitely do that one. He's like, you're queen of that one. But we talked about, does it work? And he said, well, in some certain circumstances that it does. But then we talked about which circumstances other one. It was a great conversation.
That is so nice to hear. I use some of those skills. I was thinking a couple of days ago, I was a little stressed out. I was overworked, and I thought of the parents guide. I thought, okay, just, have a good sense of humor. You can laugh at life a little bit. I love your story. That you gave me chills with the story about the gentleman at the grocery store. And that's what I'm talking about. When you say thank you, the employee will learn from the parents guide and the book to say you're welcome. Not yep, not no problem, not have a good one, which happened to me just 2 days ago at the pizza place. I said, thank you. The kid behind the counter, have a good one. That's not going to bring anybody back. You want to say you're welcome. So exactly what you said, the old-fashioned skills, and that's what I'm talking about. It's nothing really that technical. It's pretty easy, pretty simple stuff.
And I think anytime we have an opportunity to give our kids a leg up, then they have a wonderful leg up. I think one of the things that individuals who have autism, they tend to be the politest people I have ever met. And you know why? Because they're rule governed. Right. And the rule was given to them, you must be polite, and you must. So why not give them even more of those rules in a very fun format, so that when they're going to the job interview, what if our kids were at the front of the line instead of the back of the line? Yes. And I think this has the ability to help us to do that.
Thank you. I that's why I wrote it. I really thought, let's give these kids, like you said, a leg up, and let's quit throwing them into these situations where any kid, neurotypical or with autism, is prone to fail. Adults too. If you don't practice this, chances are you're not going to really shine during that interview. And the other thing that's in here that a lot of parents like is the social media etiquette.
I was just going to ask you about the social media because you devote a chapter to that.
Yeah, so that's really important. I see this all the time. I look at a lot of Facebook pages, and people put the teens in charge of their business Facebook page. They'll say, "Oh, social media, can you be in charge of the page?" And you'll see these customers comment, and they'll say, "Oh, I'd like to buy that wedding dress you have. Do you have it in stock?" And there'll be no comment back. There'll be no thank you. So these kids, or it'll be really bad grammar. There'll be a lot of misspellings. So this teaches them how to effectively write an email, how to effectively write a text message, how to reply in social media, and a lot of social media etiquette as far as always being nice. Don't waste your life on the electronics. There's a whole chart in there on social media etiquette, kind of a fun chart with little screens on it. So
I've got it right here. And Nancy and I were looking at this beforehand because I'm thinking about a story in the news recently of a bunch of kids that got accepted to, I think it was Harvard, and that they posted some things on social media, and now they have been disinvited to Harvard.
That's right.
And I'm sure that their parents wish that they had given this sheet to those kids. Can you imagine what they must have done to get their kids to the point where Harvard accepted them, and they're out over a Facebook post?
Right.
A really horrible Facebook post. So more things are wrong than just this, but this would have helped. But this is really useful for everyone, and I think it's great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum.
That's useful for adults too.
I think that there's one here that you can see. Don't post when you're angry. I wish I could give a whole lot of people that.
Yes, that especially in today's environment.
Right. There's so many things in here that are really, really useful. So now tell our parents, where can they get this?
Oh, you can either go to my website, www.smilethebook.com, or both the Parents Guide for Smile and Succeed for Teens and the book Smile and Succeed for Teens are available on Amazon. If you want to buy both, what I don't want people to do is buy the Parents Guide and get disappointed. You need to use the Parents Guide, you also need the book Smile and Succeed for Teens. They work in conjunction.
A very good point, but it's a great thing to be doing this summer. Get both of them, give the one to your teen, have the Parents Guide for yourself. I also want to point out that one of the things you say about the Master Your Electronic Etiquette is creating a contract with your teen about their cell phone, and you give a link to be able to download one for free. There's so many great things in here. You've done a really great job, and we're thrilled to have you here with us to share this with our parents.
Thank you so much, Shannon and Nancy. It was a pleasure to talk to you again.
Well, we can't wait to see what you come out with next, Kurt.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you for being on, Kurt.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So I know you're working on this already with Jem, and I was saying that I thought it was a little bit above Wyatt's head, but you disagreed with me. And
well, and you were just looking at the Parents Guide,
right?
And you were not looking at the Teens Guide, and so and he's right. You do have to have both to look at, but I didn't have that to give Nancy because it's in Jem's hands.
Okay.
But I'll bring that back so that you can see.
Okay.
Because
maybe see if there are some things that I think he could work on. I thought a lot of it was a little too sophisticated for him.
But here's the thing, these are the kinds of books, you don't have to do them in order. I like the way that I said to Jem, pick the subject that you want to read about. The first thing that he read about was the power of a smile. And there was a section where, and he and I did the exercise together, and we did this in the car, where Kurt asks you to say something that, what's an example of something that would be that you're excited about something. And he says, try to say it with a sour face, like, Jem, you're really good at that.
Right.
And how hard it is, and it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't look right. But then say it with a smile and saying, Jem, you're really good at that. And how different it feels. And Jem and I both did it, and he said, boy, it really does feel different. And we can do that with with anyone. We can do that with very young kids. We can, and the power of a smile, and that even if you don't make eye contact, if you smile at someone, it goes a long way. So he does talk about things like eye contact in here. And I do think it's important for our kids to know, for the longest time, we would say to Jem, you've got to make eye contact. Well, why? I mean, he was like, why would I have to do that? And then one day when he was a little bit older, I couldn't have explained this to him when he was 3, but we were still asking him to make eye contact at 3. When he was like 6, I said to him, you know, the truth is you don't have to make eye contact. You absolutely don't, which he knew to be true. And I said, but people think that you don't like them when you don't make eye contact, or they think you're lying or you're hiding something. And he was like, they do? Why would they? That's crazy. And I was like, it doesn't have to make sense. It just is. And I gave him the experiment. I said, try seeing what happens when you look somebody in the eye, when you say something, and see what the reaction is. Well, that he was willing to do. And he saw that he got a better reaction. He still doesn't make perfect eye contact. Well, I don't.
Yeah. Right,
you know,
right.
And we're not looking for perfect. We're looking
No.
for them being able to do the things that they want to do. And as you and I were saying before, I was saying, you know, sometimes our kids see, I'm trying, but I'm not getting the reaction that I want.
Right.
And they don't know why, and it's frustrating. I remember going to my 50th birthday party and my son laying on the floor of my friend's foyer and saying, why, him crying and saying, why won't they play with me? And my heart breaking for him, because he was with a group of people and he was trying to get them to play, and there was just one thing that wasn't working.
Right.
And he didn't care about what that one thing was. He just wanted them to play. I, as a parent, have to care about what that one thing is or what those 32 things are. So when people say, well, why do we have to do things, you know, and change the way they are? I didn't want to change who my son was, but I wanted to take away the obstacles that were preventing him from getting what he wanted. He wanted those kids to play with him. I know he's going to want a job. And I know he's going to want to move up in that job.
Mm-hmm.
And we want them to be happy.
We do. That's
So,
what we want above all else, right?
You know, healthy and happy.